Today I'm going to be a complete buzzkill and crush all of your off-grid dreams by explaining some of the things that I see are romanticized in the off-grid lifestyle, but they're actually really hard and frustrating. But follow along with me till the end because there's more of a point to this beyond the raining on your off-grid parade thing. So number one is outdoor showers. You think that you'll be communing with nature or having a spiritual awakening, showering under the stars. But in reality, off-grid showers basically means bugs. A lot of bugs. They get in the cracks and the crevices. Off-grid showers are usually pretty open. Some of them don't have a roof. So there are a lot of gaps for bugs, specifically spiders, to get into. My neighbor told me that she was in her outdoor shower and a wolf spider crawled up her leg. And if you don't know what a wolf spider is, they are fast. They can get big. If it were me, I would have burst the door open and ran streaking, screaming to my house and would have just prayed that my neighbors don't drive by at that particular moment. Now, they can also be very, very drafty. This is okay in the summer when it's extremely hot and humid outside, but in the winter, it gets cold. And I don't like being cold. And if you don't like being cold, then off-grid, outdoor, wintertime showers, even fall showers, are not very comfortable at all. Number two, ironically enough, composting potties. You might think that you're not having to deal with septic tanks, the expense of them, or the maintenance of them, which is true. And you might be excited by the idea of giving back to the land, so to speak, with your compost potty after it's all broken down, adding it to your vegetable garden or to your fruit trees. However, composting potties can get very full very fast if you have a somewhat large family, 4 to 6 people, and that thing has to be emptied daily. And there's nothing quite like the feeling of having to go and then sitting down and feeling something when you sit in areas that you shouldn't feel something. It's not a lovely feeling. They also can be extremely heavy because think about it, it's full of fluid. So you hopefully have a strong grip and don't trip and, you know, a nice place to then dump it. Speaking of dumping it, sorry, I'm being immature and I'm making jokes in my head about dumping. Okay, dumping the potty, it splatters when you dump it out because it's full of things plopping and there's plopping after the original plopping, and you have to dump it out, and it does splatter out a little bit. So don't wear your nice clothes when you go to do it. They are also rather smelly when you dump them and when the wind shifts and blows it toward you, which is to be expected, but that is something. It's not all just compost soil. There's a while until it breaks down into that. And dogs, we have found out, love to go through that pile, as do chickens, which makes sense. You also need to keep it far away from areas that could get contaminated when it rains, and then the whole thing, like a big old poopy sack of tea, gets water that flushes all of the stuff on the inside out. So you don't want anything around that area. And I don't know if people really know all the things that go into the whole process. You kind of have a general idea. You're dealing with waste, yes. But people going, we're going to do composting toilets. There's more to it than just that. Finally, about composting potties, people don't mention this. If you're taking any kind of prescription medication, you should not be putting that waste, even composted down, anywhere near any food source or anything that could get those chemicals from your waste leaching into them. So those are all things to think about. Another one I see that is on Pinterest quite a lot is pouring water over your hands from a basin to wash your hands. Thinking of the pioneers, an old farmhouse, charming, you know, those really pretty porcelain basins, and you pour and you wash. Then everybody sits down to eat a meal together. But what you don't think of is to prepare that meal, you had to handle raw chicken, and now you have raw chicken on your hands, and you really need to wash your hands. And so now you're touching the basin, the pitcher, and pouring it, and now you got to wash the pitcher and cross-contamination. So now you got your salmonella hands just touching everything. Or you run out of water because it's a limited supply in a pitcher right when you really needed it, right after you've changed a diaper. Or if you have chicken poop on your hands, which happens so much on the homestead. I don't know why it happens that much, but the pitcher that you gotta be touching and then washing afterward, it's just a little bit more frustrating than, again, Pinterest will have you believe. Last example, tiny off-grid cabin life. Ah, so charming. Minimal belongings, minimal stress. Or so the internet would have you think. Because tiny spaces get dirty so fast, surprisingly, shockingly fast. And it's so easy, oddly enough, to lose things very quickly. Because if you drop something on the floor, there are so many things it could roll under, and there's so much stuff that you're looking at everywhere that it's hard to find whatever it is you're looking for, because in your field of vision, there's just stuff. Not only that, but smells linger in small places. So like that, nasty smell of cooked something or other, that greasy smell, or, in general, sometimes there are bad smells that linger from cooking, or something gets burnt, or, heaven forbid, the bathroom is right off of the kitchen. Better have a working door and an open window. Smells just linger in small places. It's really soggy sometimes and dirty and muddy when it's rainy weather and you have to come in, but there are very few places to kick your muddy shoes. And it starts to feel very tight in there, especially with other people. Not really a whole lot of places to retreat to, especially in the wintertime when you really don't have a lot of options for outdoor living and everybody is cooped up in this tight place and it's cold and dreary and miserable and there's no place to go other than to your own bed that you might actually have to share with somebody else. I mean, not complaining if you're married, but I'm thinking of my kids when we were in the camper, they had to share a bed and, there's no place for anybody to go to get privacy. In a tiny cabin with one door, everybody can still hear everything. So now the point of this isn't to discourage you from going off-grid. In fact, on the contrary, I want to empower you with knowledge of some of the challenges that you might face. Maybe things that Pinterest would tell you or YouTube would tell you are great and wonderful. They probably can be. But if people don't also include the candid parts about how challenging they can be, I can see how somebody could get a very warped perspective on the potential hardships and frustrations that they would have to deal with in off-grid life. If you can find your way around some of these frustrating challenges, you'll be one step closer to living the off-grid life of your dreams.